Oh, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Jar of Marble dwellers and Jar of Marble curious. My name is Linda and this is Jar of Marbles. I hope that this finds you well and you've just had another one of those just amazing weeks. And you know, why not? This week, I wanted to talk a little bit about, I hope you fall in love with being alive. Of recent times, I've taken at least once a month, I go away to a cottage in a secluded area. It's actually on a friend of a friend's property, and I'm able to disappear there for a while, which is absolutely lovely. There's no connectivity, as in no internet. It's beautiful, surrounded by trees. It's quiet. You can hear bird song on occasion, and well, actually a lot actually, but it's just interesting how you don't notice it very much when you're, running around very busy. And so I have found that this is just a beautiful getaway place, and just makes me feel so in love with life and so glad to be alive. So I was away at my cottage, as I like to call it, down the coast, and it offers perspective like no other place. It might be my age, it could be the season, of winter, it could be so much is going on, and yet all stand still, but perspective she gives in droves. I also think it's got a lot to do with, living in New Zealand in a really beautiful hamlet surrounded by the Southern Alps and the ocean, just right there. And so I sort of feel like I'm at home. I'm somewhere where I feel very, very comfortable and at peace and inspired. It's just lovely. So sometimes when the birds stop singing, and man, they are serious musicians, the silence is deafening. It enables you to go deeper into yourself and swim in places that we're often just too busy, or ignorant in my case, of its desire to bring forth information that wants to come to the surface. And you have to have an ear and your heart ready to listen, and be kind enough to yourself to hear what it is being said to you. So it got me thinking about how my drive has been and is to fall in love and remain in love with being alive. How do you think you're doing? Well, I think I'm doing good, Bob. So pleased that you made it today. I hope this subject lights you up, or maybe you're an old hand at it. If so, wouldn't be lovely if you could leave some tips in the comments, because it can help those who are too shy to leave their Bob's worth. So anyway, I'll carry on with my 2 cents worth. All of us, by the time we slide into our 60s, or we're heading towards our late 50s, we have lived and strived, and a whole basket of sandwiches worth of living, all relevant and all worth an applause. What was that, an applause? Thank you so much, really. Thank you. That's right, good. But that doesn't mean we have any or all of the answers. We just know what we know, right? And I'm still interested in change and adjusting, learning and changing. And as the eras whiz by, and boy, do they whiz by. I mean, I was 17 yesterday. No, I was. And, you know what? It just feels like it. Anywho, I digress. My personal interest in self-development are mostly on an inner perspective. I have a good level of skepticism, and I'm interested in quiet observation and freedom. I don't know if you've noticed, but people, including myself, do like an applause when we are at a show or watching sport, and we want to express our joy, approval, and so we clap. There is something about how it makes people feel exhilarated. My grandson, he's only 19 months old, and when he claps, he is just pure joy. He has this look of so much love and happiness on his face, smiling gleefully and happily. And so I get it. So we both sort of, clap together, and the excitement sort of, rises, and I think, yeah, the applause button feels great and weirdly fun. Who knew? Anyway, so I take a leaf out of his book. As you know, life throws all sorts of situations at you. Some you walk into, and some just arrive, completely out of nowhere, uninvited, and not your problem, but it can become your problem if others who do these things don't do your job, or they don't do their job. I mean, we all know incompetency is rife now. It's bloody vogue, for Pete's sake. I mean, my goodness gracious. Anywho, I'll give you an example. Did you know that there are about 3 trillion trees on planet Earth, and between 100 to 400 billion stars approximately in the galaxy? And did you know that an entire spacesuit costs $12 million? That's right. 70% of that cost is for the backpack and control module. However, the spacesuits that NASA uses were built in 1974. If these were priced by today's pricing, they would cost an estimated $150 million. I know. There is a reason for telling you all these facts, so just hang in there. And did you know that there is a planet made of diamonds? Yep, there is. And it's twice the size of Earth. The super Earth, as it's known, is most likely covered in graphite and diamond. Paying a visit to that planet would probably pay for the $12 million spacesuit needed to get there. So all this amazing minutiae and facts, and yet some dude was pulled over outside my house for drunk driving, as per the neighbour's observations, and he was taken away by the police, but not before leaving his car parked smack in the middle of my driveway, leaving me pinned in. Yeah. So I rang the police, but of course it's not their concern. It's now the council's. Yeah, this is true. I mean, I'm honest to goodness. And the council then put you on some kind of list, forget you, and just leave the car there. Now, 2 weeks later, still sitting there after many calls and people who just can't help you because you're on a list. I know, right? So we now are in a world, and we live in a world, if you express agitation at the ridiculousness, you run the risk of being put at the end of their list. Point is, the world is a wondrous place, but meanwhile here, right on the ground, on Earth, it can be just nuts, unfair, and the incompetency is, well, quite frankly, embarrassing. No one gives a shit. They charge you the Earth for their council rates and then probably have fabulous lunches and dinners and get all excited at their meetings, but leave a car that has nothing to do with me, nada, zero to do with me, smack across my driveway. That sounds positively annoying. No class, Bob. No class. Meanwhile, yes, I am in love with being alive, but I'm out of love with the council presently. Well, not that we were ever really in love anyway, but anyway. I think people in general who have anything to do with politics, even vaguely attached, is like, well, I think it's like a turd, isn't it? Thinking if we polish it, it will become a diamond, and as you know, you can't polish a turd. Moving on, whinge over, hashtag, I hope you fall in love with your life. That will usually mean creating the life that makes sense to you and makes you feel happy. Mostly that involves getting started somewhere. Writer and Aikido teacher George Leonard said, you can't do everything, but you can do one thing, and then another, and another. In terms of energy, it's better to make a wrong choice than none at all. You might begin by listing your priorities for the day, for the week, for the month, for a lifetime. Start modestly. List everything you want to do today or tomorrow. Set priorities by dividing the items, say, into A, B, and C categories, and at least accomplish the A items. Try the same thing with long-term goals. Priorities do shift, and you can change them at any time. By simply getting them down in black and white adds clarity to your life, and clarity creates energy. So thank you very much, George Leonard. Many brilliant-minded people talk themselves out of getting started, and being smart doesn't help very much if you don't have the courage to act. So I reckon because so many people don't give things a go, it actually creates a pretty wide field for those who want to try something and get some level of success. It's just an observation. Like, it's not that I'm super strong or that things don't hurt me. It's just I refuse to let pain be the reason I fail. And I love this quote by David Bowie, who said, aging is an extraordinary process whereby you become the person you always should have been. And you know what? The older I get, that is actually so, so true. I don't think twice about certain things anymore, and it's absolutely wonderful. Like, we all have days when we don't feel like a 10. Sometimes I feel like 2 number 5s held together with mashed potato. Oh, I hear you, Bob. I do. None of us can get too far from things just not going to plan, but it is up to us to not stay there too long. But I like mashed potatoes. Yeah, good one, Bob. I hope you can fall in love with being alive. Look, being happy and content isn't for everyone. What? Who doesn't want to be happy? Plenty, Bob. It's like a virus now. It's everywhere. What do you mean? Well, it's like there's only one way to think and only one way to be, and always looking for a good excuse to step out of life and accept that that's the best they can arrive at. Bollocks! I'm with you, Bob. Like, I do ask myself some deep questions. Like, for example, did I shit my pants today? And if I say no, then I know I'm doing all right. Ugh, really? Yes, Bob. You may need to get your hearing checked. Slight left turn? At what point did aging become so terrible? When did being older become so awful? I'm aging, and while it may not be gracefully in the traditional sense, I'm happy, and I'm happy to be thriving and, best of all, alive. And while some traditions had to go because they just kept people stuck, some are nice, as in the gathering of family and friends. I think that's awesome. What are traditions? Well, they're basically peer pressure from dead people. I didn't expect you to say that. I surprised myself too, Bob. Point being, influences from the past. Traditions highlight the influences from the past, and that is not always good. So introducing into my life my own traditions, which are largely be yourself, be around people who support you, people who care about you, people you have a good laugh with, like just really be yourself, obviously. I don't support nasty gossip and behind the times thinking that some people take on as gospel because great Uncle Bird said so. And this from Brené Brown, author, public speaker, amazing lady. You would have probably read her books and heard of her for sure at the very least, but there was just an excerpt from one of her books I thought I just had to share. I just loved it, and it's talking about midlife. I think midlife is when the universe gently places her hands upon your shoulders, pulls you close and whispers in your ear, I'm not screwing around, it's time. All of this pretending and performing, these coping mechanisms that you've developed to protect yourself from being inadequate and getting hurt has to go. Your armour is preventing you from growing into your gifts. I understand that you needed these protections when you were small. I understand that you believed your armour could help you secure all of the things you needed to feel worthy of love and belonging, but you're still searching and you're more lost than ever. She goes on to say, time is growing short. There are unexplored adventures ahead of you. You can't live the rest of your life worried about what other people think. You were born worthy of love and belonging. Courage and daring are coursing through you. You were made to live and love with your whole heart. It's time to show up and be seen. Again, by Brené Brown. I just thought that was so applicable to so many of us, and especially in a world where so many people are waking up and realising that certain ways that our coping mechanisms, which I thought was beautifully said, as she was saying about how we've developed to protect ourselves from feeling inadequate and getting hurt, is just right on the money. So it's going to stop you from feeling like you're falling in love with it. You are in love with your life. Hashtag, I hope you can fall in love with your life. Many of us are finishing up work, from our whole life, or, retiring or hoping to start on their retirement. Some have injuries, are ill. A lot of us have a lot to do in their day-to-day, busy with raising their kids, looking after sick elderly parents, or have kids that they will be looking after for all time. I am well aware that we don't all fall into the same box. So a huge shout out to all of you out there. For the person who has hung in enough to get to this part of the podcast, for you, I am filled with admiration and love, and I would just like to really send you my applause. And there it is. No, really. You totally deserve it. I'm here in my world looking out and hope this reaches you, and I hope that it can be of some comfort. We all need that, and me no less. I started the podcast for many reasons, and one of those was to find new friends, learn lots of stuff, and have a reason to get out of bed. I may be waiting a long time for the friends part because people are not friendly anymore, or not as friendly as they used to be, and thing is, I'm really quite a genuinely friendly person, and I get it. You have to be more discerning, and I don't think cutting off the possibility is the answer, especially when there are my jokes to be had. My jokes are very tame here, but outside of the studio, tut. Just got to be careful who you tell your colourful jokes to. And sometimes I get my audience right, and sometimes I get it wrong, and that actually can be quite funny in itself. Not everyone has a healthy sense of humour, but that's all right. I've always thought, that my jokes, even the bad ones actually tend to be funny in a way because they're really bad. I was just looking at some jokes around colours, and I thought they were quite good. How about this? What's green, covered in custard and sad? Apple grumble. I know. Your jokes are just so bad. I know, right? I know. Thank you. No, that's all right, Bob. It's okay. My thinking is I want to feel in love with my life, and I'd like to know others who are too, or at least would like to. That's all we need. It's just that desire. I know I was having a wonderful conversation with a very dear friend the other day, and she had been visiting some friends and she hadn't seen them for a while, and she said the one thing that just stood out so much was the utter lack of joy. That they all were complaining about things, or they were just very, very sure that life was a waste of time. They weren't expressing any gratitude for what they actually had and who they have in their life. There's so many people out there that have actually got families who really care about them, and they, no matter what they do, the family that is, there are people out there that still can see the faults, and yes, but they don't do this and they don't do that, and they're just really hard to be around because they're just so miserable, and that's all they think about, talk about is the misery, just pure misery. So my thinking when I'm saying about falling in love with my life, and there's times when I really know that 100%, and it's a great feeling. And I think a good example is if you've ever been on holiday, even if you've had a great holiday and you come home, most people say, my goodness, it's great to be home in my own bed. I'm glad to be home. You know, I feel a new appreciation for where I live. And I think that trying to embody that more in one's life has to be a good thing. And it is a conscious thought. It's not something that, just arrives, one day. It's a choice. It's a conscious decision that you make every day. And I know myself when I feel that life's just ganging up on me in terms of just lots of things going on, and maybe I'm going to meet a friend for a coffee, I think before I go, I am not going to talk about this unless I'm asked. And if I'm asked, it'll be one or two things like pass, or could we talk about this on another day? I'm just really glad to see you, and it'd just be great to be able to think and talk about anything other than what's going on. Because sometimes there isn't anything to say. Sometimes it's just repeating a narrative that just doesn't work. But anyway, I digress ever so much, So anyway, I'd like to have a bag of would like tos, please. Yeah, could you just give me 2 bags, Bob? I would so love to just see. I would just like to see people happier. It's a choice away. And that's my bag of I would like to see that. It's like even today I was in a cafe, and this lady come up and she went, well, hello. And she went, oh my God, you're not who I thought. I thought you were my friend. And we both laughed and just turned around and went, well, hello to you anyway. And we laughed. And, in that moment, each person's day was made. And then I saw her meet up with her friend, who looked nothing like me, incidentally, can I say. And you could tell her they're telling the story, they're holding each up, giggling off to their booth to go and have a coffee together. But it's just a little thing, but it's uplifting and fun. I'm a give things a go kind of person, and I figure that if I don't give this a go, then I can't expect to be found in relation to doing this podcast. And I mean by good people who get me and I get them. It can't be that hard, surely. Well, I'm into year 2. This is the 60-something episode, so I figure I'm staying around, and I hope that you do too. Tell your friends. Yes, that would be nice, because I don't live where I was born, and I've moved around a lot, and for a huge chunk of that I was a single parent. I wasn't able to make many lifelong friends. I did make friends along the way, don't get me wrong, and it was lovely. And it seems the rule is if you don't live in your hometown, then you're no longer a true friend. I don't mean tell me obscure pieces of information. I mean be in my life. You'd think you were asking for someone's labia or something, and truly I'm not. Did you say what I think you said? Oh, I probably did, Bob. Being in love mindfully, loving my life, has given it a silver lining. I am the bloody silver lining. And so my idea of having fun is the following. For example, I paint stones, and on them I paint what I call rock chicks, and they are representative of women in all walks of life, all cultures, and I like placing them in obscure places. I like taking photos of them. I send them overseas. I take them overseas, and then I put them on my Facebook page, which is called Rock Chicks, which, is it also has the Jar of Marble logo, if you do happen to look for it. But I discovered painting in the pandemic, and then it just occurred to me to start painting the smaller rocks, and then on the back of it I just write, Jar of Marbles Podcast Australia, seeing as they have ended up overseas, and I just paint the logos, whether it's Spotify, Facebook, etc. And so it's just turned out to be, really satisfying, lots of fun, and I use acrylic paints, I seal them, I go to a lot of trouble because I really want them to be something that even if you don't listen to the podcast, if you're listening to the podcast but you're not actually listening to the podcast because you've got the rock in your hand and you just, what would the chances be that you actually have a rock in your hand listening to this right now? Anyway, I digress. I do that a bit. Anyway, never mind. But the point is, it's fun. It's been given to they've been given to autistic children who just love the feel of them, who just love the look of them. So that is so pleasing. People have put them in their tills and their businesses because, again, they just like the look of them and thought that might bring me a bit of luck, and I'm all about that. And it's just another thing too, while I'm yammering on, is I really love gardening, and I like to put on nice gardening outfits, which might be like pajama pants with a big pair of socks, and then I tuck them over my pajama legs, and then put in my boots, and then I might have a nice top that does not match. Very important not to match the pants, and then I'll put my hair up so it doesn't get in the way. Put on my lipstick. Very important to have your lipstick when you're out in the garden, and so I was out in the garden. This was last weekend, and I was weeding and I was mulching. The mulching, I did that a bit late this year, but that's all right. I'll explain all that as we go on because we've got all these renovations going on. So meanwhile, I'm in the garden, I'm weeding, I'm mulching, I emptied out the veggie pod and watering, and then the brooming, sweeping the backyard, and it just looked fantastic. The satisfaction of how beautiful the garden is and the peace and the tranquility that came over me, I realised I hadn't felt that like that in an age, because the renovations have been going on since January, and meanwhile here we are, heading quite swiftly towards the end of the bloody year, because it's been taken over with bags of cement, tools and boxes of tiles and stuff. Just like loads and loads of stuff. But anyway, I just wanted to say that in regard to falling in love with your life and you feel alive, you're just totally in love with the idea of being alive. That's what that little bit of gardening and cleaning and sorting, I just sort of went into it a little bit resentfully, I must admit, initially, because I thought, I don't even know where to start. But by the time I finished, and every nook and cranny was lovely and everything was in order, and the spinach was more fully ahead than I realised, and all my other herbs that I've been putting in, as much as some of them are sleeping because it is winter, it's just wonderful, the remembrance that I had of how much I actually do love all that. Well, the producer's looking at me, poking at the watch, so I guess it's time to go. But I wanted to thank you so very, very much for joining me. It really means so much. So thank you. Bob really loves it as well. Yeah, I do. I know you do, Bob. So say good day to the family for me, give the parrot a smooch, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.